Do you feel like God is not listening to you because you can't find a job? Do you feel hopeless? Do you feel like you are never going to figure it out? Have you gone through hundreds of applications, tens, maybe hundreds of interviews? Have you done everything you can possibly do and you still can't find a job? Guys, I had a friend today reach out to me and we were discussing a great friend of mine. He's about twice my age. We met at our last job. Spiritual man, great family man, just an all-around solid guy. He's Catholic and he invited me to his church shortly before I left to join the military for this most recent time. And it really opened my eyes because most of my life I was raised in a very Baptist, in a very, it's totally opposite in many ways, spiritual environment in the Catholic Church. And I believe that the Catholic Church, especially a good one, right? One that's following after Christ, I especially believe that it's a great place to be. If you've never been, I would try it out. But this guy reached out to me. This is a guy that has great faith. He reached out and he was telling me that he was very discouraged because of his job. There was a job that he was supposed to be getting, he told me about last week. And he said that, everything was lined up. He was supposed to be transitioning into it. I thought he had it, right? This gentleman has been looking for a pretty solid, full-time job he can do. Thankfully, his wife works, and they are, blessed with a great family and everything. But of course, things are tight, just like they are for a lot of people these days. Money is tight. It's a tough place to be. And he was saying how it didn't go through, and it was pretty disheartening. Right? He just flat out said he was very discouraged. And guys, I kind of understand what that's like myself. I know a lot of you watching this video do as well. And, the easiest thing to do when someone's in that predicament is to say, oh, sorry to hear that, all those generalizations we make, all those things we say to make people feel better. And I straight up told him, because I've been in that situation where I don't know what I'm supposed to do, trying to find a job, right? And I told him, I said, God's grace is sufficient. Your faith will carry you through the storms into dry land. And guys, I think a lot of us need to really hear this today. I need to hear this, right? This is something that I especially need to hear, because I'm always, or I usually have always worried, right? The Lord is changing my mind and my heart to understand that I don't need to worry, that I need to stop relying so much on myself. But let's be real, the bills are there, right? The bills need to be paid. The rent is due, the lights need to be on, right? You need to make sure that you're putting food on the table. If you have a family, this is even more important. So what is going on? Why can nobody find a job? Especially, why do good people these days, I see a lot of good people, like my friend. I see a lot of people online, they're struggling to find a good paying job. They're struggling. They have all the credentials, right? Maybe you went to college, right? I went to college, I got the degree. When I got out of school, it really didn't do anything for me. In some jobs, it was a slight preference, but that was it, right? Unless you go into your field specifically, it's really not going to do a whole lot for you. And even then, a lot of people have issues trying to find a job in their field, right? You have to have other things. You have to literally sell yourself. You have to make sure you know how to write a resume, talk to people skills, conversational skills. But let's be real, even that's not really going far these days. Most people are submitting hundreds of applications online. They're doing all these things online. And I think, that's one of the biggest downfalls these days, is how easy things are. As you see, the easier things get, especially if you're in the West, we live in an entitled mindset where we think that if we have access to something, if it's easy, then we deserve it, then we should be almost handed these things, right? And I don't believe that, right? I think that everybody, if you really want something, if something's really worth it, if something is worth getting or achieving, it's going to be difficult, right? It's not going to be easy, or everybody would have it. So people are having to go in person. They are having to talk to the hiring managers. They're having to figure out how to get to this person and talk to them to try to get a job. And they're having to do this day after day, maybe week after week, month after month. People's savings are going away, right? People have families and they're worried. Now guys, I don't have a family and I don't have any like dependents that rely on me, but I can tell you that even as a single guy in his late 20s, things are stressful, right? This is supposed to be the prime of your life. Well, some people might argue with me on that, right? You know, if you are wise, if you are constantly learning and trying to improve in all areas of your life, then you should always be growing as a man, right? You really shouldn't, quote unquote, peak until your 40s. And even then, there's guys who are doing great for themselves, who have turned their lives around in their 50s, 60s, and beyond. But it's tough out there. It is really tough out there. You really don't know what's gonna happen. A lot of us think we're gonna head into a recession. We think that the bills aren't gonna be paid. A lot of people are ending up homeless, right? A lot of people are ending up on the street. Now that's another video for a different time on what I think about that, but I truly believe that if we look at the overall picture, right, there's something that's kind of gone wrong. And you can look at the prices of things. I noticed these things very, very quickly after COVID happened. Everybody was like, oh, it's gonna be quick, it's gonna be, you know, simple, it's gonna go back to normal really fast. And I noticed it seemed like overnight, within about a few months, right? But then really over the next year, 2 years, prices of goods, prices of commodities, services, everything went up by at least 50%, right? And so what happened is a lot of people who were living the high life, because let's be real, 2019, between like 14 through 16, or excuse me, 14 through 19, there was a good 5-year period where a lot of people were doing pretty well, right? Your money went really far, you could have pretty much anything you wanted. And so when tough times happen, people are strapped because people live at their means. And I think this is truly an eye-opener for a lot of God's people, right? The world's gonna do their own thing. I've talked about this in other videos, how at the end of the day, if you love money above God, then yeah, you might find a job. Yeah, you might be able to make a lot of money, but it's gonna take your soul. You're not gonna have a very fulfilling life, right? The world runs on fear. The world runs on anxiety. God says, look to me. And I truly believe these days, this is sort of a sifting, right? This is an eye-opener, because a lot of believers that I knew, myself included, didn't really take financial things very seriously, even though if you look at books like Proverbs, what is one of the core themes, right? There's a few core themes that are very prevalent throughout that book. One is staying away from, you know, adulterous, loose, fornicating, you know, women that are just like kind of like Delilah and Samson, right? They're not any good for you. Their hearts are away from God. The other theme is finances. Being wise with your finances. Do not be indebted to a lender. Do not be surety for a stranger. If you have debts, pay it off as quickly as you can, right? You need to get into the mindset. You know, a lot of people joke about Dave Ramsey, right? But he is where he is because he's a smart guy with finances. The Lord has blessed him with a lot of financial knowledge. And for a long time, you know, I was doing my own thing. I said, oh, you know, credit cards, everything, man. Like, just put it on the credit card, right? I can get all these like cash backs and rewards and all this stuff. Guys, very, 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 very few people truly have the discipline to stay on top of debt 100%, especially personal debt, right? Business debt and other things, that's a different story. But personal debt, guys, a lot of people are just they're not frivolous. They're just spending money because they just want to spend money. A lot of people are like, oh, I have to have the car, the house, I have to have the subscriptions. Then when tough times hit, all of a sudden they're strapped for cash because they've been spending all their free money on all these things to entertain themselves, make themselves feel good, to be comfortable. And I believe this is a heart check moment in our lives, guys, because I've been here. I've talked about in my other videos where I've been on Redline. I was going through weeks, months, years of barely being able to scrape by. Even times I earned a lot of money, I didn't know what to do with it. Like, I was still financially illiterate. I wasn't wise. Made a lot of foolish mistakes with my money, right? And it took a long time, right? I had a lot of pride. It took a long time to, you know, figure out, okay, I need a plan, I need to do this, and God opened doors. But it took years, right? It took me having to come to the realization, it took me having to humble myself. God humbled me, and then realizing I need to reach out to Him in faith. You don't really know God is your provider until you are relying on Him for that next paycheck. Until you are relying on Him for those few dollars to put gas in your car, those few dollars to get some food to eat, a few dollars to keep your lights on, a few dollars to pay your car note, right? A lot of people, we've lived, I say we as a collective, I know a lot of people, are struggling. Some people have some things they have to deal with. I get that, right? But as a whole in the West, a lot of people, we still live, I believe, in the US, we have a land of abundance, right? If you understand how business works, if you can provide a service to people, especially in a just way, right? In a upstanding way, you can make it really far. There's a reason people still come to America, because we do have a lot of opportunity here. Okay, you can make opportunity, there's opportunity everywhere in the world, but I'm just saying as a whole America, there's a lot of opportunity. But we've become wasteful. We've put idols in our lives. We've let these things take over our lives, and we've sort of created the predicament that we're in as a whole, right? I was watching some videos on the figures of the debt that people have incurred these days. The credit card debt is through the roof. People are barely paying their car loans. People are barely paying their student loans, right? And I get it, the economy's really bad. I totally get it, guys. But I can tell you right now, years ago, before I purchased my car, right? Me and my dad for many years did not get along because I wanted to do my own thing, and I thought I was smarter than my dad. And my dad, years ago, when I went to buy a new car, because I wrecked my old car, that's a different story. But years ago when I went to buy my new car, my dad was like, Nate, you really sure you want a car payment? I was like, well, I can afford it. I don't have anything else I'm paying right now. And he's like, well, you know that's going to be a debt you're going to be paying for probably, years to come. And I was like, well, yeah, but it's a nice car. It's the car I want. And he's like, all right, I was in my younger 20s. I was a young man at that point. He gave me the wisdom, and I chose not to follow it. And, years later, still paying that car off. It's almost, thankfully, should be paid off, within about a year or so, Lord willing. But been paying on that car for probably about 6 years, a little over 6 years now. And if I just took my father's advice and bought a car that was a little bit lower, maybe not as nice, maybe not what I wanted, right? I would have extra money that I could spend on things, other things, right? Other necessities. I would have more money to pay off other things, right? We are the product of our choices, right? A lot of people don't like to think that. We're just products of circumstance. Oh, this just fell in my lap. Some things might seem to come out of nowhere, but most things we do to ourselves. Most things we make happen to ourselves. And the reality is, we can get out of it, right? Having faith in the Lord will bring us out of these tough times. Putting our eyes on Jesus, right? We need to put our eyes on Him in the storm. If He tells us to walk out on the storm, focus on Him. Don't focus on the waves. Don't focus on everything that's going on around you. God will make a way in the wilderness. And I believe that God's calling us out of the wilderness. I believe that He's calling us out of the love of money, of needing all these things, right? Of being financially irresponsible, right? Think of all the times, like I think of this too, right? I'm not here to guilt anybody. I'm just here to keep it real. If I didn't have debts, if I didn't have like all these bills that I'm paying, right? How much could I do? How much could I bless others, right? In the New Testament, it talks about how you need to take care of your household, right? Your family. Even if you're not on the best terms with them, at the end of the day, you still need to take care of your family. If you can't take care of your family, the Bible says, you're worse than an unbeliever. The Bible says if you can take care of your family, that's great. Start taking care of other people. If you're financially blessed, take care of other people, right? There's people out there who truly do hit some tough times, whether it's through, being irresponsible or whatever. They hit tough times. They need help. There's people out there who don't have the fortitude, the strength, the wisdom that you do. You can give them the wisdom. You can also help them out, right? And so this is a gut check. I believe this is a calling out. And it's funny because there's a lot of people out there who are saying that they're realizing these things. They've lived their life in pursuit of money, in pursuit of accolades, in pursuit of the approval of people, wanting to be the best, right? We all want to be the top dog. We all want to be the best of the best. But it's because of ourselves. We want to be esteemed. But I believe God's calling us out, and he's saying, you've been selfish, right? In Revelations, it talks about the 7 churches, and I believe it's the 7 spirits of the churches throughout the world. And one of those churches, I forget off the top of my head, but one of the churches, it's revealed that, you've chased after wealth. You've chased after the pleasures of this life. You've forgotten what truly matters. And it says in the end times that people will fall away from the faith in pursuit of money. Having a form of godliness, but denying its power. Having a form of like, look at me, I have everything. I have every, worldly thing that someone could want, but they're empty. They don't have a purpose. They don't have a mission. They're not building the kingdom of heaven. They're just building it for themselves. And they're like, what am I doing? And I think a lot of believers, followers of Christ, had ended up in this trap. If you're watching this video, I don't believe it's coincidence at all. So if you're struggling to find a job, focus on the vocation that God wants for you. See, I believe there's a lot of people out there, right? I get you have to work a job sometimes to make it by, right? I was 25 years old, strapped for cash. I was a dishwasher. I went to fast food and worked for 4 months. I found another job and I worked there for a few more months, right? Sometimes you have to do what you have to do to pay the bills. Don't think that anything is beneath you. God will humble you very quickly. I believe that I was above certain things. God humbled me. It's like, you need to work. You need to take care of yourself, right? If you do not work, if you're able to work, I believe that you are denying what God's told you to do. You're being lazy, like you're actually being a sloth. So do what you have to do, and also figure out, okay, what is it that I'm good at? What is it God's calling me into? Meditate on those things. He will provide the way for you. Don't get caught up in the circumstances. I make these videos to encourage. I speak from experience. I speak from growing up in a very volatile financial environment, right? I see what it does to families. I see what it does to people's anxiety, to their stress levels, right? It's a very real thing. Being, always being poor, always, barely having enough to pay the bills and get by, it does something to you. I'm not here to tell you that we're supposed to live in, absolute abundance, and we're supposed to always, be rich and be driving around in nice cars and nice homes, but we're supposed to be content in all things. At the same time, we need to be responsible. So I hope this is a wake-up call, and I hope it's encouragement for some people. Eventually, God will provide a way for you. But he's also testing your faith through these times. He's also checking your heart. Because I know for me, it was a huge heart check. It was, are you going to follow money? Are you going to follow the ways of the world? Are you going to follow trying to be the best in business, the best at that? Or are you going to follow me and what I want for you? And when you follow the Lord's way, he provides all these things. It's just a byproduct. It's a blessing, right? God will sustain you in the path that he wants you to be on. So figure out what that is. Turn to Christ. Ask him for guidance. Guys, it might take some time. I'm here to tell you, for myself, it took years. Check your heart, check yourself, check your life. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Work out your life with Christ. He will show you the way, the truth, and the life. Guys, if you have any disagreements, any comments you want to add, let me know in the comments below. Lord willing, I'll see y'all in the next one.